Clearwater Pines had the kind of curb appeal that could fool anyone. Manicured lawns, pristine sidewalks, and a shimmering lake nestled in the center of the community made it look like a tranquil dream. But from the moment I moved in, I could feel the undercurrent, a quiet hum of control, woven into every neighborly wave and overly cheerful newsletter. The control had a name: Karen Whitmore, HOA president for 8 consecutive terms, blonde bob pearls, and a clipboard fused to her hand like a second limb. She was the type who knew every clause in the bylaws because she had written most of them herself. Power was her hobby, her obsession. My name's Mateo Reyes. I work in law enforcement federal level. I'd transferred to Clearwater Pines a year ago for a deep cover operation nearby. On paper, I was just another new homeowner, quiet, professional, unassuming. That was by design. Karen made her presence known within days. She arrived at my door with a welcome to the neighborhood basket and a warning. "Just so you know," she said, eyes skimming my unpainted mailbox post, "we take the HOA regulations seriously here. It's what keeps this place perfect." I nodded, thanked her, and shut the door. For a while I kept my head down, paid dues, trimmed hedges, kept the grill behind the fence. I knew how to stay invisible. It was part of my job. But as the operation wound down and my reassignment came through, I gave my formal notice to sell the house and move to DC. That's when everything changed. Karen showed up again. No basket this time, just the clipboard and a tight smile. "You can't leave yet," she said. I blinked. "Excuse me?" She tapped her paperwork. "You're in violation of several HOA covenants. Pending citations must be resolved before the board can review your sale request. Until then, you're not authorized to vacate." "I'm not requesting permission," I said calmly. "I'm notifying you. I've been transferred. The house goes on the market next week." Karen's smile tightened further. "That's not how things work here, Mr. Reyes." I could tell she wasn't used to resistance. The next morning, the violations began. A citation for an overly bright porch light, a warning about my trash can being left out for exactly 6 minutes past the approved window, then a fine for unsanctioned trimming of a hedge that sat entirely within my own fence. Within 5 days, I received 12 citations totaling over $3,000 in fines. My realtor got spooked after an anonymous call claimed I was under dispute. The listing was frozen. My move stalled. My life, effectively, was being held hostage. Neighbors started acting differently. People I'd shared polite nods with wouldn't meet my eye. One woman crossed the street rather than walk past my driveway. The whispers were everywhere. Karen was building her case, not just legally but socially. She wielded gossip like a scalpel, cutting away my credibility with surgical precision. But here's what Karen didn't know: I wasn't some naive homeowner unaware of my rights, and I certainly wasn't someone she could bully into submission. After 1 week of her games, I sent a formal rebuttal to the HOA citing multiple violations of federal property law. I attached my relocation orders, redacted but real. I gave notice that the interference in the sale process bordered on illegal obstruction. Her response was chillingly simple. "Mr. Reyes," she wrote, "you should tread carefully. This community protects its integrity at all costs." That wasn't a warning, it was a threat. Still, I pressed forward. I arranged another moving truck, restarted the listing process. But I could feel it. Karen wasn't done. She'd tasted resistance, and now it was personal. That weekend I installed a security system, mounted cameras, locked every window and backed up every communication. I didn't know exactly how far she'd go, but I had a feeling. I was about to find out, and I was right. Because the next time Karen tried to stop me, she wouldn't come with fines or forms. She'd come with flashing lights and handcuffs. And that's when she'd learn exactly who she was dealing with. Karen didn't believe in losing. That much was obvious after I ignored her veiled threats and proceeded with my relocation plans. The HOA's harassment shifted from petty to calculated. My driveway was suddenly marked with orange paint, an urgent utility issue, according to an anonymous notice. Sprinkler heads were snapped clean off, blamed on improper use. The community email bulletin blasted my address as a case study in noncompliance. No name, just mine, was the only house not blurred out in the photo. It wasn't about rules anymore. It was a power struggle. And Karen didn't want to win. She wanted to break me. The agent in me cataloged every move. I documented each fine, each threat, each suspicious occurrence. I didn't retaliate. Not yet. Instead, I waited. Let her overextend. Let her think she was in control. Then came the police. I was loading sealed boxes into a rented moving truck when the first cruiser arrived. Lights flashing, no sirens. Just quiet authority rolling down the street like thunderclouds on a windless day. A second car pulled in behind, boxing me in. 2 officers stepped out, hands on hips, expressions unreadable. "Sir," the taller one said, "are you Mateo Reyes?" I nodded, sweat clinging to my neck from the July heat. "I am. What's the issue?" "We received a complaint," he said. "Claims of property tampering and attempted illegal vacating of a restricted asset." HOA referred the matter directly to dispatch. "Restricted asset," I repeated, incredulous. Sir, we need to ask, are you removing fixtures from the home landscaping materials, electrical components? I gestured toward the boxes. Office supplies, clothing, a lamp. You're welcome to look. They did, polite but thorough. 20 minutes of lifting lids and reading serial numbers. Meanwhile, Karen stood across the street with a folded lawn chair and a glass of lemonade, watching like she was enjoying a front row seat at an execution. When the officers finally returned, their tone had softened. There's nothing illegal here, one of them said. Looks like you've followed every procedure. I nodded. I filed notice with the HOA. I've paid all fines, disputed some. My relocation orders are on file with my employer and the title company. This is harassment. The shorter cop. We gave a knowing glance between you and me. We get a lot of calls from this neighborhood, mostly from one person. Karen's eyes narrowed when the officers walked away without an arrest. Wait, she called out, rising from her chair. You're just going to let him leave? He's within his rights, ma'am, one replied. You can take it up with civil court if you have issues. She turned to me then, her composure cracking. You think you've won? No, I said calmly. I think I've been patient. I hoped that would be the end of it. But the following day, my real estate agent called in a panic. I can't list the house, she stammered. The HOA sent a cease and desist order claiming unresolved litigation. If I touch this, I could lose my license. They don't to have that authority, I said. They've looped in the county, she whispered. Karen has connections. This isn't normal, Mateo. No, it wasn't. It was a full-on campaign. One Karen was weaponizing using every legal gray area she could bend, but I knew how to navigate systems. More importantly, I knew how to bait traps. So I filed a Freedom of Information Act request through my agency, listing all HOA correspondence involving my name. I called in a quiet favor with a colleague at the county clerk's office to flag any fraudulent filings under my property parcel. And I waited. Then, at 4:17 a.m. 2 days later, my security system pinged. Motion near my garage. I pulled up the feed. A man in a black hoodie was unscrewing my porch light. 2 more figures lingered at the edge of the driveway, one carrying bolt cutters. I didn't call local police, I called my agency. Within minutes, 3 unmarked units rolled up. The men ran. One tripped, cuffed, the others disappeared into the woods. The next morning, as news of the attempted home sabotage made quiet rounds through the community, Karen was nowhere to be seen. Her porch lights were off, her chair was gone, but I knew she was still watching. She'd tested the boundaries of intimidation. Now she was about to meet the boundary of federal jurisdiction. Karen had gone quiet, but silence was never her style. It wasn't surrender, it was strategy. For the next several days, no fines arrived, no emails, no cryptic citations taped to my door. Just a waiting game, thick with tension, like the breath held before a storm breaks. But I knew the playbook. She'd gone underground to recalibrate. Meanwhile, my agency's investigation into the sabotage incident was moving fast. The man we'd caught with the bolt cutters, a local handyman paid in cash by someone who refused to give a full name but matched Karen's description. Mid-50s, expensive perfume, and driving a white Lexus with Clearwater Pines decals. We couldn't prosecute yet, too circumstantial. But the pattern was clear. She was escalating from harassment to criminal mischief. Still, Karen wasn't stupid. Reckless, yes, but not stupid. She wouldn't get her hands dirty again. She'd find someone else to do it for her, and she did. The next escalation came on a quiet Sunday morning. I was double-checking my moving itinerary when I heard a knock, loud, deliberate. When I opened the door, 2 men in black tactical vests stood there. No badges, no insignia, but they looked official enough to fool someone unfamiliar with the law. Mr. Reyes, the taller one said, we're with the HOA's private enforcement unit. We're here under Directive 4.1b of the Clearwater Pines Property Protection Clause. He said it with a practiced tone, like he expected compliance. I kept my expression neutral. There's no such clause in the state code, and you have no jurisdiction to enforce anything on private property. The shorter one stepped forward, hand hovering near a pair of flex cuffs. Sir, you're in violation of the emergency stop order issued by the HOA board. You're attempting to flee while under neighborhood review. We've been authorized to hold you until the matter is resolved. Hold me. Step away from the truck, he said firmly. It wasn't just arrogance now, it was dangerous. I stepped back slowly, reached into my jacket, and flipped open the leather case I'd been carrying for a moment like this. The gold shone beneath. The morning light. Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Mateo Reyes. Their faces collapsed in real time. The short one actually took a step back. The tall one froze, mouth slightly open. I raised my voice just enough for Karen, watching from behind her curtain across the street, to hear. Gentlemen, you've just attempted an unlawful detainment of a federal agent. You've impersonated law enforcement, trespassed on federal relocation property, and violated at least 3 state statutes. And since I have a running body cam and live back up en route, well, I'd suggest you take a seat on the curb. Neither moved. I took a step forward now. They sat. Karen's curtain fluttered, then dropped. 10 minutes later, a marked cruiser arrived, lights flashing. The HOA enforcers were cuffed and read their rights. I handed over their fake IDs and the HOA issued paperwork sloppily forged with nonsensical language and no legal grounding. One officer looked up and whispered, "What kind of HOA is this?" "The kind that thinks power makes them untouchable," I said. As the men were loaded into the cruiser, Karen stepped outside. No clipboard this time, no tight smile, just wide eyes and a trembling mouth. "You lead," she said hoarsely. "You're FBI. That's not fair. You never told us." "I didn't need to," I replied. "I was a private citizen. You made it personal. You can't turn this into a federal case." I stared at her, voice steady. "Karen, you filed false reports to law enforcement. You obstructed the sale of private property. You orchestrated and attempted illegal detainment using impersonators. You sabotaged my home. And you compromised the security clearance of a federal agent during an active relocation. This is a federal case." For a moment she looked like I might faint. "You're done," I said. "The only choice you have now is whether to lawyer up quietly or publicly." Karen didn't respond. She just turned and stumbled back into her house, door slamming shut like the last page of a failed script. Across the street, blinds shifted. Neighbors peeked through windows. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, it was stunned. The tyrant of Clearwater Pines had just been dethroned, and the final act was yet to come. Karen's reign ended not with a bang, but with a summons. The very next morning, she was served at her doorstep, not by a neighbor, not by an HOA member, but by a U.S. Marshal. The paper trembled in her hand as she read the words: obstruction, impersonation, civil conspiracy. It wasn't the HOA board she now had to answer to. It was the Department of Justice. Word spread fast. Clearwater Pines, once a hushed, tightly controlled community, erupted in whispers. For the first time in years, people spoke freely and they had plenty to say. She fined us for hanging wind chimes. She banned my daughter's wheelchair ramp because it wasn't aesthetically approved. She ordered our backyard tree cut down because it dropped leaves on her fence. Victims came forward, dozens. A quiet revolt surged through the streets. The new HOA board, hastily assembled from members who had long kept their heads down, suspended Karen's authority, revoked the fines, and initiated a forensic audit of community funds. Spoiler, money had vanished. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. My focus remained on closing loose ends. Within a week, my property was legally listed, free of income. The county clerk, now aware of Karen's manipulations, expedited my paperwork. The real estate agent, once terrified, was now emboldened, her voicemail full of offers from buyers who wanted the house that broke the HOA. But the war, that wasn't over until justice was served. The FBI's Internal Affairs Division submitted an official complaint to the county prosecutor outlining Karen's actions. In a rare move, a federal civil rights violation was also filed based on her targeting of certain homeowners and abuse of regulatory power for personal vendettas. Karen tried to fight, hired a lawyer, pleaded her intentions were good, said it was all a misunderstanding, but the evidence didn't lie. Surveillance footage, emails, the recorded attempted detainment, the anonymous tip to flag my clearance traced directly to her home router. She was cornered. 2 weeks later, she accepted a plea deal, 5 years probation, $60,000 in fines, and permanent ban from serving on any HOA board in the state. It wasn't prison, but it was public. I left Clearwater Pines the following weekend. The sun was setting as I locked the front door for the last time. The house stood quiet behind me. No more fake notices on the porch, no HOA spies circling, like vultures, just peace. Earned peace. As I walked toward the moving truck, a voice called out, "Mr. Reyes." I turned. It was George, a quiet older man who lived 2 doors down. I'd only seen him a few times, usually watering his flowers under Karen's watchful glare. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said. "We didn't know how to stop her. We were scared. But I didn't come here to start a war," I said. "But she left me no choice," he nodded. "Sometimes the only way to break a cage is to shake the bars until it rattles apart." I shook his hand. Across the street, several other neighbors stood outside. Some gave small waves, others just watched with quiet respect. For once, no one was afraid of who might be taking notes behind the curtain. As I climbed into the truck, I looked once more toward Karen's house, vacant, shuttered, a foreclosure notice taped to the door. Her castle had crumbled. I started the engine and pulled away from Clearwater Pines. The sun set in my rearview mirror. The road stretched open ahead, DC bound, new assignment, clean slate. I wasn't the same man who had moved in a year ago. I'd seen how unchecked power could twist a neighborhood into a prison. And I'd seen how the quiet ones, the watchers, the weary could rise when someone lit the match. I didn't come here looking for a fight, but when Karen tried to chain me to a petty empire, she forgot one thing. I don't run from corruption. I hunt it, and now I was moving on to the next hunt.